Well, scoring GM norms is never really easy. It means that you have to play 9 rounds with great consistency and perform above a rating of 2600. Now that's really some ask. India's Praggnanandhaa made his second GM norm recently, and it shows that he played the tournament in a very consistent manner. The tournament was played in Greece, in Heraklion, and over there Praggnanandhaa needed to score 7 points out of 9. It was a closed round robin tournament, so you already knew how many points you had to score. With 7 out of 9, I would say you have roughly around 4 chances to go wrong. I mean, you can make 4 draws. Apart from that, if you lose, your chances reduce tremendously. So that's why I think that scoring a GM norm in such a tournament, contrary to what many believe is easy, I think it's very tough. So what we are going to do in this video is I'm going to pose you some questions as if you are in the shoes of Praggnanandhaa, and you have to try to find the answers. So let's get straight into it. This is the first position in front of you. It's from round 1. He's playing, Pragg is white. He's playing against Adam Taylor, who is 2-3-1-8, and Pragg, who is white, sees that his rook is really nicely placed and doubles the rook on the g file, and black replies with g6. So the question to you is, what would you play here as white? Try to pause the video and think about this. Try to think, put yourself in Praggnanandha's shoes, small ones, yeah, and try to find the answer to what you would do here. Well, there are many ways in which white can get a good position here. I think knight e5 is definitely something to think about, but queen h5 as played by Praggnanandhaa was very strong, and I hope that you calculated some variations here. I think 2 variations are extremely important. First one is king h8, which was played in the game, we'll come to it, and the second one is bishop into e3, bishop takes, and now take on c4. The idea is that you want to bring your queen into c4 and try to launch some kind of an attack on white, but here comes bishop c4, rook into g6, knight g6, and you take on g6, and this is winning because after bd3, king a1, hg6, rook into g6, king f8, bishop c5, white is just winning. So this could be a variation which you should calculate, and after queen h5, king h8, this one is the critical one. You should see rook into g6. If you saw this, excellent, well done. You score first point just like Praggnanandhaa, because after knight g6 there's a check. The king has to move to g8. If it goes there, you lose the queen, and otherwise queen into g6 as was played in the game loses, because after queen h4, bishop g6, queen f6, the knight jumps to g4 and it's checkmate. So it was a very successful start for Pragg. He started off with 1-1, and in such a tournament I think it's very good to begin on a winning note. So coming to round 2 now, you're playing with the black pieces as Praggnanandhaa, and white is, your opponent is a GM, Peter Martin, who's 2466 rated, and he opens the game with 1 e4, and Pragg replies e5, and then he suddenly plays f4. Well, not suddenly, because if you check Martin's games, you will find that he is a King's Gambit player. But you know, I know many e4 e5 players from black who have absolutely no clue as to what to do against the King's Gambit. So this might be a good opportunity for you to think about what you would do. Pragg first took the pawn, and here the opponent played knight to f3. So my question to you is, what would you do here as black? There are many, theoretical moves, but I'm trying to think that maybe you don't know the theory at this point and you want to play actively, you want to do something here. So what would you play? Right, so Pragg went for the most active move, d5, and I kind of like this move because you're kind of opening up the position and you have a safer king. I mean, if you can castle quickly, white king has moved his f pawn here. So in general, it turns out that black would have the safer king if he is able to castle. ed5, and once again now, what would you play here? Try to pause the video and try to think like Pragg and try to see what would you do here. Well, taking with the queen looks okay, but then knight c3 just gives white a tempo. So Pragg went knight f6. This is very logical. It looks some kind of Scandinavian, and after c4, the question to you once again is, what should black play here? Right, so I hope that you were able to find this move c6. It's a very typical idea, because if you take, I can take with the knight, and look at my development, it's just splendid. And the point is, I could even control the d4 square, but my doubts about this position from black's point of view were that white can just play d4 and gain space. So how is it any good for black? But then you realize that after bishop b4 check, let's say knight to c3, black just castles, and this is the reason why he is much better, because you can see the rook can come to e8. Materially you are equal. I mean, right now f4 pawn may fall, it doesn't really matter, because developmentally black is doing excellently. Let's say bg4, and now I want to take here and take on d4, so you might play d5, and after bishop f3, knight e5, or first let's just insert rook e8 check, king f1, knight e5. I think black is doing wonderfully well. This seems like an excellent position for black. So this was the opening phase of the game. I think you should know this moves d5 and c6. It looks like this seems a very good antidote against the king's gambit. In the game d4 was played, but after cd5, just developing all your pieces, putting your knight on c6, I think Pragg had no real difficulties. He managed to draw this game with ease. So after a win in the first round, he was 1.5 out of 2. Well, in the third round, Pragg was up against Georgios Gomas from Greece, and he was playing white, and this is the position in front of you. It's your move. Pragg is white. What would you play here? Try to think about the various weaknesses in the position and come up with the answer over here. Well, I hope that you were able to find the next move. As you can see, the king over here is not particularly safe. Also, the c6 pawn is a little bit soft, so it makes sense to open up the bishop and play the move e4. Congratulations if you found this move, and I think it's a very strong move. Even though white is a pawn down, after de bishop e4, he gained a lot of play, and after bishop d7, bishop f3, black thought, well, I don't want to keep defending the entire game, and so he took on d4. And now the question to you once again is, what should white play in this position? It's well, a little tactical. Pause the video and try to put your head around this problem, because as you know, second round was a draw. You are 1.5 on 2. You must win this one. So try to come up with a solution. Okay, so in this position, Pragg went for bishop into c6. I think not such a great move, because after bishop takes c6, rook c6, black just went king b8, not taking on c6 because queen a7 was coming, but king b8. And at this point, I think black is fine. I mean, there's no real way in which you can make progress as white. So that's the reason why I think rook into c6 was important. And after bishop c6, now you take with the bishop, forcing black to make a decision, which he has none. He must take. And after queen a7, king d6, in this position, after queen into h7, I think white has excellent chances most probably black will lose one of these pawns, and then you can slowly push your kingside pawns. That would have been a win, but Pragg continued playing in that equal position over here, and he managed to convert it into a win. So that was 2.5 out of 3. Well, in the 4th round, Pragg was playing with the black pieces against the experienced English GM Keith Arkell, and the game began with the move d4. Pragg was black, knight f6, knight f3, d5, c4, e6, and you have the queen's gambit declined in this position, and usually white players opt for either bishop g5 here or bishop f4. However, Keith Arkell went for c into d5. This seems inaccurate because after ed5, bishop g5, black played the move c6, and the point is very clear. I want to bring my bishop to f5. So if you play e3 after bishop f5, I think black has absolutely no problems. He's developed his problem piece and it's on a very good diagonal. Hence, white played queen to c2, and I think most of you must be aware about theory here, but if you are not, I would like to ask you, what do you think is black's best move here? Try to find it, what Pragg played, and well, it's a useful idea to know in this position. Well, I hope that you thought about this bishop on c8, because that's the piece you need to develop, and therefore the right move is g6. The plan is to put your bishop on f5, and in the game after e3, bishop f5, bishop d3, black just took, and after he played knight bd7, he could even castle, but he played knight bd7. I think he is completely fine. A draw was agreed after a few moves, so that's 3 points out of 4 for little Pragg. So until now it has all been going like win with the white pieces, draw with the black. So that means 2 wins with white, 2 draws with black, and this was the 5th round game. Pragg had the white pieces again, and this time he was facing a very difficult name for me to pronounce, Konstantinos Anagnostopoulos, who is 2-3-2-9, and Pragg began with knight f3, and I like this idea of e3. It's in a book written by Axel Smith. It's called the E3 poison. He mentions that the move E3 is quite a poisonous move. I mean, you're just moving a pawn 1 square ahead, but then you have the flexibility to choose B3 systems, sometimes D4, sometimes C4. So it's very flexible, and I think in must-win situations it's good to have these flexible weapons. So after C5, B3 was played, and E6, bishop B2, knight F6, C4. The nice thing is that D4 is not possible here for black. So after DC, BC, knight C6, A3, stopping knight B4, bishop E7, queen C2, B6 was played by black. And the question to you here is, what would you play here as white? So yes, I mean, if you found the move bishop e2, you don't have to really find it, you just make that move. It's developing a piece, pretty good move. But well, if you know this idea, you will definitely go for it, and that is the move g4. It works perfectly when you have a bishop here on b2 looking at this diagonal, and then you can just develop your rook on the g file also. So in the game, bishop b7 was played, rook g1, queen c7, g5. White just won a pawn and then another pawn, and I think Pragg was much better, although he has to be careful because his king over here is very insecure on e1, but objectively he is much better. I like this power packed play over here where he went for the move g4. So when you are playing these closed round robin events, you must play with energy in many rounds, and that's what Pragg did, and that's why 4 out of 5. I think now you can see that with 3 points to get from 4 rounds, the GM norm starts becoming a real possibility. In the 6th round, Praggnanandhaa was up against Untitled, who is an Indian player, and I think very upcoming player now. He's reached a rating of 2359 very quickly, and Pragg was black once again, and you would expect him to play the solid Queen's Gambit declined, but well, he went for the Chigorin. So in this game, really I don't have many questions to ask you as such, but I just would like to show you one position. This is all very well known theory. Queen d6 is a nice move because you step away from c4, d5 coming with a tempo, rook b1, b6, bishop b5, and here you can see that black actually got, although his king is still in the center, he got a very nice position here. Yeah, queen e4, and here after rook g7, I think this position is just equal, and I don't believe how a very good opponent like Untitled could lose from here, because after this I think white is doing fine, but Pragg showed very good technique as such. He first exchanged the rooks, and now I think this is the move which I really would like you to think about over here, although it won't be very difficult for you to find it. Still, it's very nice black to play here. Pause the video and try to find the black's move. Yes, rooks should not always be developed on the files. You could even go through ranks, and rook h5 is a nice move. Your rook is looking at c5 and a5, these two juicy squares, and I think over here still it could be around even, but I don't really like this move. Rook c2, king d3 should have been played, but after king d6 now things become very difficult. Black is a pawn up and more active, and Pragg went on to win this game. That means he was 5 out of 6, now just requiring 2 points out of 3 games. Round 7 was a pretty crucial one for Pragg because he was playing the top seed, Nikolaitis Ioannis, and here the opponent is 2-5-3-5. You have the white pieces. The good news is that you have won 2 rounds back to back. That means the pressure on you is less, and so Pragg went for a very simple line in the Caro-Kann, the one which was liked by Fischer, exchange variation here, and I think he didn't really want to risk it, and after a couple of moves, I mean, it becomes quite apparent that white is not the one who was really trying, although I would say white has a minuscule edge here because of the isolated pawn. Perhaps maybe here knight d4 could have been interesting, but Pragg went for rook e1, and after d4 white has a pawn up position because he wins the e6 pawn, but this is after rook d2. The game ended in a draw after a few moves, and Pragg was on 5.5 out of 7, requiring 1.5 out of 1.5 points out of 2 in the last 2 rounds. So we come to the 8th round. You need 1.5 points. You have the black pieces now. Do you play solidly and put all the weight on the last round? You have the white pieces. Should I play for the win back then, or you go full flow right now because you're playing against the last seed, that's Mrs. Georges, and opponent started with d4. Pragg went for the Queen's Gambit declined. Bit surprising considering that if he won this he would be most certainly making a GM norm, and he went for the Tartakova variation with b6, queen c2, and I really like this system with black pieces. It's very solid, and you can play for a win as well. But after bishop f6, cd5, ed5, white simply castled, and the question to you is, what would you play here as black? It's a very critical moment in not just the game but also the tournament. If you can win this game, last round draw won't be very difficult, but with the white pieces. But if you do draw or lose this, of course losing means you're out. If you draw it, that means you have to do a lot of hard work. So what would you do here? Well, I hope that you were able to make a better decision than Pragg, because the young champion went for knight d7, which was not a good move. And why is it not a good move? That's my next question to you. I would like you to answer this. Opponent did make a very strong move now with white. Yes, the right move is h4. You want to go and blast the position, because after c5 you go g4, you don't really care. cd, knight d4, knight c5 was played, and here Pragg made a very good move. He offered a draw and a draw was taken. That means a last round win would still give him chances, but I think white shouldn't have been so kind, and he could have just gone on with g5. Now you don't really want to take this pawn because it opens the rook's file here to h7 along with the queen, and so he takes on d4, and after ed, knight e4, gh6. I think there's only one guy who can be better here, and that's white. He's already broken through to the king side. So coming back to my question in this position where I had asked you to pause the video, after long castle, what should black play? And he should immediately attack the center with c5, not knight bd7, which is slow, and after dc there is a nice move, knight d7, and you realize that instead of white breaking through with g4, h4 and g5, it's black who has very nice attacking prospects here with a rook that could come to c and b files. So that would have given him a nice position, but a draw, that means 6 out of 8, last round must win with the white pieces. Well, not easy, not at all easy to win on demand with the white pieces, especially when your opponent is a 2-3-7-0 player. But Pragg had this willpower that he must win, and he actually managed to do that. So we'll come to one of the critical positions over here, which was in this one where black took on d3 and queen takes d3. So just observe this position. You will find that the pawn on d5 is a bit weak, but at the same time the knight could jump to e4. There are a lot of possibilities for black as well, but Marquides went for this tactical solution. He took on e5, and then black jumped with knight e4, and well, the rook is kind of trapped on e5, so Pragg took, d takes e4 and bishop e4. And the question to you now is, you are black, this time you are not in Pragg's shoes, but you are in the shoes of his opponent. Your opponent is making a GM norm, by the way. Pragg is making a GM norm with a victory. What would you play to make his task difficult? In the game, I don't know what happened to Marquides. Maybe it was a blank spot. He just took on e4, which was a bad move, because after queen e4, white is pawn up. He puts his knight on e3, maybe the rook comes to d1, and it's just better. These two pawns here limit the bishop on g7. So instead, it was obvious to take on d3, bishop d3, and now rook d8. And you have very good compensation because you have the two bishops. So even after you don't exchange the rooks, and you just come in with rook e2, and I think black would have held this. So in the game, he took on e4, and then Pragg managed to consolidate, as we just mentioned, 1-2 pawns, and the third one, another one here, and it was pretty simple for him. He just managed to win. I think at this point he was very happy. His opponent resigned here, and that was the second GM norm for our little wonder Pragg, who is now close to 12 years and 8 months, but the way he played was very nice. I think this overall video gives you a feel of how difficult it is to make norms in closed round robin tournaments. Many people have this feeling like closed round robin events are easy, you can do it just like that. Yes, it's true, you know your opponents, so you can prepare well, you know the points you need, so also you can be mentally prepared, but at the same time there's a lot of pressure because you know that now I have to win, now I have to draw, and that affects the game many times. You need to be in a good state of mind. Pragg did it well here, and this is something for all of us to learn. Congratulations to Praggnanandhaa, and we hope that he makes his third GM norm very soon when he would become a full-fledged grandmaster.